Beast Mode. Marshawn, Mr. I'm here so I won't get fined, Lynch, played during a time or era when the NFL running back landscape was at its peak. Maybe it's because I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, but I never felt like Marshawn Lynch was as good as I think the media made him out to be. While he was always being brought up, I genuinely thought Marshawn may have been overrated because of one single run that birthed the nickname Beast Quake. But was I wrong in my assumption, or am I validated? Today we will deep dive in the career of Marshawn Lynch, from his early years to his college time to his time in the NFL and retirement, to see how good he actually was. Marshawn Lynch was born in Oakland, California, more specifically North Oakland. Lynch would begin his football career around 9 years old, and he would join the local youth football club. He would later tear it up in high school, not only as a running back, but as a bruising linebacker too. It doesn't stop there, as he was an all-around athlete, as most of these guys are, playing basketball and was part of the track and field team. Lynch would have a game in high school where he would rush for over 400 yards. His accomplishments would earn him a 4-star rating per Rivals.com, being the number 2 running back in the nation behind the one and only Adrian Peterson. And I'm just going to tell you guys this now. I think from right this moment, I started to realize why I may have overlooked Marshawn as much as I did. Despite being the number 2 running back in the nation, Lynch would opt to stay in state, where he would commit to California. In college, Lynch was unleashing beast mode early on, carving up defense after defense for 3 seasons. In his senior year, Lynch would amass a Pac-10 leading 1,356 yards on the ground and would catch 34 passes to add another 328 passing yards, reaching a total of 15 touchdowns. With his stock high, Lynch would forego his senior season and commit to the star-studded 2007 NFL Draft. He would end up being selected 12th overall by the Buffalo Bills, and he was the second running back taken, behind Peterson once more. And while yes, his first 2 years were pretty good, rushing for over 1,000 yards in 07 and 08, I felt like this guy just kept getting overshadowed by Peterson, which is too bad because people often forget Lynch did run in a tandem with Fred Jackson. I was one of those people. And despite hitting 1,000 yards, that was only good enough for 11th in 07 and 13th in 08. In 2009, Lynch had a season to forget. It started off with a 3-game suspension that was caused by him getting arrested for having a gun in his backpack in the trunk of his car. Me saying that out loud is wild. How did they get to that point? How did they get to having a gun in his backpack in the trunk of his car? Like, story for another day, I guess. The rough start to 2009 would carry over for the rest of the season, as he was eventually replaced by Jackson at the top of the depth chart, finishing the campaign with less than 500 yards and a 3.8 yards per carry, rushing for only 2 touchdowns. 2010 felt like it was the writing on the wall. The Bills used their 9th overall pick on running back CJ Spiller, and there was no way they were going to keep 3 high-end backs in their roster. So by week 5, he would be traded to Seattle. Many would say that his time with the Seahawks was his prime, and you'd be correct in your assessment. While the 2010 regular season was nothing to write home about, the 2010 playoffs were indeed where Marshawn Lynch would become a household name. Despite having a 7-9 record, the Seahawks managed to win a putrid NFC West and had a home game in the playoffs. It was in this wild card game against the Saints that beast mode had truly arrived. In the 4th quarter, with under 4 minutes left and already up by 4, Hasselbeck hands the ball off to Marshawn, and despite needing to go 67 yards for a touchdown, Marshawn would not be denied. He would break a total of 9 tackles, with the most devastating one being a mean stiff arm to Tracy Porter. That run was the dagger for the 7-9 Hawks to advance to the divisional, where their journey would come to an end at the hands of the Bears. But despite the loss, Beast Quake was still the talk of the town. And in 2011, we saw the career renaissance of a man who would also become associated with Skittles here moving forward. In 2011, Marshawn would run for a career-high 1,204 yards with another 212 from the passing game. This would result in 13 total touchdowns between running and pass catching, and would give him his 2nd Pro Bowl nod of his career. 2012, however, would be the best season of his entire career. In 2012, Lynch would rush for nearly 1,600 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground. Now, before we move forward here, I want to ask you guys an honest question. That 2012 campaign where Marshawn rushed for 1,600 yards, do you guys remember that more? Or do you guys remember a certain someone hitting 2,000 yards during this season? Most likely your answer is neither, because that was a long time ago. But if you had to pick between the two, my guess is that you picked Adrian Peterson's 2,000 yard campaign, which was also his MVP season. So again, for the third time I bring this up in this video, Marshawn at his peak was still overshadowed by the guy he consistently was compared to in Adrian Peterson. Maybe not compared to, but it was definitely his peer from as early as high school. And to go a step further, Lynch didn't even finish in second on the rushing list this year, trailing the often forgotten Alfred Morris for the silver medal. Now, I can say all the things I want about Adrian Peterson, just overshadowing this guy from every turn and every step that he makes, but there's one thing that AP didn't do or didn't get in his time in the NFL that Marshawn actually did, and that is win a Super Bowl. In 2013, everything came together for the Seahawks. The team went 13-3, the Legion of Boom was at its peak, and Russell was solid enough as a quarterback despite being in just his second season. Lynch, you already know, did his part, earning his third straight Pro Bowl nod by this point, rushing for over 1,200 yards again, and running for a league-leading 12 touchdowns. The team, led by their ferocious defense, would advance all the way to the Super Bowl and would make the #1 ranked offense that year in the Denver Broncos look like a college team out there, only allowing 8 points while Seattle amassed 43 in the Super Bowl route. This win wasn't the best performance from Lynch, but he did his part in helping getting the team to the final game, and as such cemented his legacy in Seattle history. In 2014, Seattle looked to repeat as champion. Marshawn would again do his part, running for over 1,300 yards and had a league-leading 13 touchdowns, earning his 4th straight Pro Bowl in the process. Lynch and the Seahawks managed a 12-4 campaign and made it all the way back to the Super Bowl, where we all know what happened in the final play of that game. And just like that, Lynch's prime would soon come to an end, as he would never top 1,000 yards in his career ever again. Midway through the 2015 season, Lynch needed to have a sports hernia surgery, which would have him out for the rest of the regular season. He would end the season with just 417 yards on the ground and just 3 touchdowns. After the season, Lynch would shockingly retire and would miss the entire 2016 season. But after rumors began circulating about a potential return, he would officially come out of retirement and would be traded to the Raiders. And he does say that a big inspiration for coming out of retirement was due to the Raiders' pending relocation to Las Vegas. He wanted the kids of his hometown to see a Oakland homegrown star play before it was too late. During the 2017 season, Marshawn was the lead back, and he did look okay, although he didn't cross the 1,000 yard threshold, running for just 891 yards and 7 touchdowns. 2018 was cut short due to a groin injury and wouldn't even notch 400 yards during this campaign. And by the end of the 2018 season, it seemed like he was ready to retire again. But for the second time, he would come out of retirement again. Now, it wasn't like a big, the Seahawks are now going to be Super Bowl contenders with Marshawn. It was more so the Seahawks just ran out of running back options. Everyone got hurt this season. But by this point, he was far removed from his prime. Rushing for only 34 yards in the season finale against the Niners, he would have a total of 7 yards in the wild card, and then would follow that up with a 26-yard game in the divisional. But what I will say is that he did have 3 total touchdowns in the playoffs, so, he was contributing something. This time was for real the end of Marshawn's playing career in the NFL. Lynch would end his career with 10,413 yards and 85 touchdowns on the ground, while adding another 2,200 yards and 9 touchdowns from the pass game. He also is a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time first-team All-Pro. And, above it all, he's also a Super Bowl champion. So now that we've covered his career, let me ask the question again. How good was Marshawn Lynch Actually. Lynch had a better career than I personally thought. As for most of it, I felt like he was overshadowed by not only Adrian Peterson, but the rest of the running backs in the 2010s. Guys like Shady McCoy, Arian Foster, CJ2K, Jamal Charles, Frank Gore, Le'Veon Bell were all guys at the same level that Marshawn was. I don't know if Marshawn actually did enough throughout his career to be considered a Hall of Famer, even after going through everything, going through all the playoffs and this and that, the fact that he had 10,000 yards, everything. I don't know. I think maybe he makes it eventually, but I think it will be a long time from now. Let me explain. Lynch played for 11 seasons, 12 if you want to count his one game in 2019, but was only elite, in my opinion, for 4 of them, and was great for 2. So 6 total great years out of Marshawn Lynch. What does go in his favor though is if you look at his performance in the playoffs too. I will say that. Yeah, he had the obvious run that he's mostly known for in the playoffs where Beast Quake was born, but Lynch also averaged 96 yards per game in 2013, the year they won the Super Bowl, and 106 yards per game the following year in their Super Bowl loss. Finally, if you look at his highlights in game, and not just looking at the numbers, the man dominated more often than not in his prime. So with all of that, I do believe that it probably won't happen anytime soon, but maybe one year he will get into the Hall of Fame. So given that's the case, if I had to give the career of Marshawn Lynch a grade, he'd probably be an A-. But what do you guys think? What grade would you guys give the career of Marshawn Lynch? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to do it for this video, y'all. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are still here, please consider subscribing. We're on the road to 3,000 subs. And if we're lucky, maybe by the time this video comes out, we're on the road to 4,000. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for your support. Until next time, love you guys. Ship boy!